GearWebsites.com is your source for firearms-based playing cards and books. We also have mugs, shirts, and posters with designs that we've made live. Of course, we have patches. Every Friday is Free Patch Friday. We appreciate your support. Thank you for shopping at GearWebsites.com. Designs that we've made live. Of course, we have patches. Every Friday.
Shit. Ninja? Ninja! Ninja!
It's 11:59 at Radio Free America, and this is Uncle Sam with music and the truth until dawn. Right now, I got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone. The chair is against the walls. The chair is against the walls. John has a long mustache. John has a long mustache. It's 12 o'clock, Americans, another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind the lines, this is your song.
And welcome everybody to our weekly wrap-up, our summary of the week, and what happened in the Second Amendment. I've got a stinky co-host here who's antsy, so he'll be getting put down here in a little bit because he won't calm down. So he just got himself a biscuit that didn't help him calm down one little bit. All right, so a lot of people get upset when we have the puppy on the show, so we'll put the puppy co-host down here in the corner. We'll give him a pat on the head. We'll say, wait a minute. We'll go big screen and we'll go one more puppy biscuit for that guy before we start the show off. I don't care what anybody says. I'm giving my co-host a puppy biscuit once in a while. All right, so is he going to sleep? He's not going to go to sleep. Well, maybe he's going to go to sleep. We had a little adventure. That's why we started the show late. For everybody's joining us live. Pat and the Bunkers out there. Good afternoon. Good evening. And then M. Gabriel also joining us live. If anybody else is out there, the only way we're going to know is if you say something out there so that we can say, hey, I think we will put the puppy down because he's being a spaz. You going to calm down? No, he's not going to calm down. Let's get him down. Let's put him down. Start the show up. All right, now we can get the show going. Get rid of this. There we go. I would give him another biscuit. All right, we'll give him this is from M. Gabriel. You can have one too. You can also have one. Both the animals got one for that. All right, so we're going to be taking a look at a summary of the week, stuff that's focused on what our Second Amendment protects. Definitely not a gun show. So lots of other people can tell you about what happened with the different grip angles and the red dots and the optics or whatever is cool and trendy at the time. I'll let them take care of that, assuming we're still alive here. Yeah. What we're going to take a look at is the stuff that's more about, like, again, what our Second Amendment protects. So we post this information on a couple of different things. We post it on Patreon, which is, if you'll see a scroll at the bottom of the screen there, the place where people can subscribe to what we do. We have lots of different websites out there that provide information and updates and calendars and history and resources and all different kinds of things. Hundreds, literally dozens for sure, websites out there at any given time. We maintain those, we grow those, we use them for different projects. And then, of course, we do a lot of stuff on social. We have the podcasts and the different shows. So the Patreons make it possible for us to spend the time. That's the biggest piece. But they also pay for the servers. We have 3 different servers that run all the time. And then the software that runs everything. And those, have bills. They're not huge. We're pretty frugal. But we thank our Patreons, the people that subscribe to what we do. And we take a moment at the beginning of the show to mention that. You don't see a bunch of ads here. I mean, it would be nice to have some advertisers so that we could actually grow the show. But the reason we're able to exist without a bunch of advertisement or without a bunch of support is because of the subscribers, the people that do make it possible. Most of them are buying us a cup of coffee each month, $5 less. Some people are buying us lunch, $20 or so each month, and accumulated. Like I said, that pays for a bunch of software, pays for some servers, and that's about it. But that keeps that off of my pile of bills, and it makes it possible for me to keep all this stuff going. So again, thanks to that, we post this information on their Patreon blog. We post it in a newsletter, which I didn't send out this month or this week, I guess, mainly because it takes a full hour to set up the newsletter, and I didn't have time this week. We put it on Substack, which is what we'll be looking at today. And then we put it on Instagram and then on YouTube. But I'll tell you what, the YouTube is pretty boring to look at. If we jump over there real quick on the screen, this is what it looks like. And it's just not formatted. It's boring. And it just wouldn't be all that exciting to go through and read when you compare it to Substack, which is what we're going to be looking at. Essentially, because we can see all the thumbnails and stuff that people put their effort into. So we can get an idea of what the different things we're going to be talking about today are. But since we have the YouTube video over here, let's take a quick second to thank again the people that are joining us live. We have a poll going, and I don't know what happened to my poll there. It just should be there. We have a poll going tonight. How do you think this week was for 2A? We got great week, good week, okay week, or bad week. And starting it off, looks like we have an overwhelming number of votes for okay, which is kind of odd. 1 for great, 1 for good, nothing for bad, which is good, but a whole bunch for okay. That's going to be interesting. I'll mention that a couple of people have links today if they wanted to join in tonight. Feel free. There's links over on the Instagrams for a couple of people, past co-hosts, so to speak. If you want to jump in, feel free. Otherwise, we're going to be taking a look here at the Substack for the things that I paid attention to this week that had to do with 2A. But I just realized that I need to splash some water on my face. It's super hot here, and I'm not going to go into this show half dying. So I'm going to take a second. We're going to throw another commercial up. I don't have a lot of commercials, so we're going to just do the intro to the show again. Here, no, I guess I can do this one for the shirts. I'll do this one for the shirts, and that'll give me a second to splash some water on my face. I'll be right back. Hey, did you know that you could help support our future projects and let everyone know you're a fan of what we do? Check out our print-on-demand store. We have a tab here on YouTube. When you click on it, you can choose from a bunch of different items. We have shirts and posters and coffee mugs. Click on the one you like. When you find the design you want to put on it, choose a color and a size if it's appropriate. And when you purchase these items, a portion goes to help fund our future projects. We really do appreciate your support. You get some cool stuff. When you get that stuff, post pictures here and on other platforms, and we'll hook you up next time you order from our Gear website store. Thank you for your support of gunwebsites.com. That was a good break there. Here we go. So now we can get back to it. So thanks to everybody for joining us live. And like I say, I can't know if you're out there. Let's say something. Wesley's out there. Wesley, I owe you something in the mail. Having to wait on that poster, driving me nuts. So I'll probably just refund you on the poster at this point and say sorry for the delay. But thanks again for purchasing something over at the store, 2 weeks ago now? Let's see, Woods is saying 69 degrees up there. Bad laws, but good weather. And it's too bad. Maybe if we had some sort of a pipeline, you could send us down some degrees and we could send you up some calibers. All right. So going through, we have lots of 2A news this week. I'll try to summarize it. The U.S. Court of Appeals denied the ATF's request to stay the district ruling on the frames or receivers. That's the last I heard on it, but there might have been something that happened today. I'm not sure. So we definitely have some movement there in the Fifth Circuit Court on those frames and receivers. Let's see. We had the HR 705 Veterans Second Amendment Protection Act passed, I believe, that prohibited federal funding from unfairly scrutinizing gun owners, gun-owning veterans, I guess. Interesting and a positive. Massachusetts had a horrible, I forget how many page, Bill 4420 be introduced and attempted to be pushed through by ballot initiative before any kind of actual typical measures that you would have for a bill that gets introduced. And that was paused, due to its insane nature. Like, there was no way it was going to happen. So to some extent, I don't know what to say. There's a lot to talk about on that one. People that say the sky's fallen are going to freak out. And then there's people that go, oh, they're just saying the sky's fallen, so they're not going to freak out. Which one is justified? Which one isn't justified, right? Both of those answers, I don't know if they have an answer. So we've got this compounds, or this polarizes those people that are going to jump only when there's an issue, and it's going to polarize those people that never jump. But I don't know if this is going to light a fire under those folks in the middle who don't yet realize but would understand consistent effort results in you don't need to fight almost at all if you've got a resistance to this type of abuse. So we'll get to see what happens with Massachusetts. It's very similar to Washington and Oregon. So I don't know what your opinions are on that. But interesting to see, are we going to learn our lesson as a community? We got 47 states sitting around watching these couple of states get pummeled over and over and over with the same game plan. At what point do we realize we're not in this as individuals and observers? We're in this together. I'm only talking about it. I don't have the answers for everything. Next is the House Subcommittee adopted NSSF priorities in their spending request, and that's a whole nother conversation. I don't know if anyone actually had this conversation. It's too dry and boring. But the NSSF, National Shooting Sports Foundation, our industry liaison with the industry and government, they're also responsible for some industry, calibration, like numerical adoptions. I don't know what the words are. But they take care of making sure that all the standards are consistent amongst the industry. What's wrong with Puppy? Puppy's allergic to 9mm, so we have to deal with that. Right now he's having a 9mm fit. So the NSSF did actually give the representatives in Congress. You want to come up here? He's begging to come up here. Everybody's seen it. So before you were having a spaz, and now you want to come back up. You have to give him a bunch of kisses to make sure he's legit, make sure he's not some other dog, and then rub him a little bit. All right, he's okay. It's him. It's him, not some other intruder. What happened? What is this? Oh, it's looking at the wall. You want to be on video again? Since we don't have any other co-hosts, there we go. This is what happens when the little baby dog gets near 9mm, starts to have 9mm fits. It's sad, really. There should be a law against it. All right, so just leave him up there, I guess. NSSF doing their thing, getting some what they call priorities into some kind of a bill. I don't know. I don't think anybody really paid attention to that. There might have been one video about it. Is this stuff the most important stuff that's happening? Or is this the most important stuff that's happening that nobody's paying attention to? I wish we had a wider focus and a more deep understanding sometimes. I haven't been watching much, so unless something's changed, we don't have a lot of in-depth coverage or in-depth research on too much of this stuff. There's a couple of researchers out there that tend to go after the important stuff, but on these adjacent topics, it'd be cool to see our resources honed to be able to reach out and spend some time on some of these things. All right, I think we're getting into not such good things. Maybe depends on how we look at it. So we have gun clubs suing to overturn New Jersey's impossible concealed carry requirements. What's all this up here? Looks me re-quote by just hovering. So that's some element, that's some feature of the Substack software. I think that's showing up on the screen. So, this whole idea of the concealed carry requirements in New Jersey now are more stringent, are more difficult than the law enforcement certifications or qualifications. So we talked about it on Instagram show this week that there's quite a bit of quite a few attempts being made to illustrate that if the concealed carriers can't carry here or there, or they can't carry this way or that way because they're not as trained as a police department, but then now they've changed the concealed carry requirements so that they're more difficult in a police department, then they can't have both of those situations. You can't require your concealed carriers to be better than police and then also tell the concealed carriers they can't do things because they're not as good as police. So it's going to be interesting to see how that turns out. Really interesting to see what happens in New Jersey. It's a small state, so they don't get as much attention. And they're over there getting beat up next to some other states that get beat up all the time also. So are we going to have a new breed of advocate for our rights that get forged in these states that are just like, literally forges, is that the right word? For these issues. There's people in New Jersey that have never had the same opportunities, the same rights, to be able to enjoy their rights, the same rights, but they can't enjoy them the same as other people in other states. So that can get frustrating. We know about it in California because they've always been vocal about it, but great angle here. Great thing to see what happens in New Jersey. This was pretty neat. If you like being frustrated watching politicians suck and waste a bunch of money and time and skirt issues and try to blame other things than the actual policies, but the border is an issue, and there's been some committees, I guess the Homeland Security Committee on the House, I guess, had a live thing this week. It was many hours long, and they turned off the comments, and I was watching other things while it was happening, so there was no opportunity to go live to create comments for it. And they'd have been pretty political, I'm sure. But one chunk that I did get to see was the politicians who would get their time to chime in on these committee hearings and spent their time saying, why would you worry about the border when there are so many gun murders? And the real problem is the gun murders. So ignoring who's pulling the trigger on those gun murders, ignoring the circumstances and the causes of the violence, the situation that creates the violence that they're using to justify taking away property and rights. The stuff is created by the people who come across the border in large part. So, and if not directly people from across the border, the drugs that are coming across with the people are responsible for a lot of the things that they're using to justify their position. So a lot of ignorance there, a lot of same old attempt to rely on ignorance. So it seems to me pretty obvious you remove the unawareness that exists, and a lot of this stuff can't happen the way it does right now for sure. Scroll down a little bit more. We're still in the 2A news portion. The Mexico lawsuit for $10 billion against a couple of different firearms manufacturers. In fact, all the Mexicans that they do business with. Isn't that interesting? Has been urged to be revived. However, it has not been revived. It's just been urged to. So it did come up as a blip, and then finally another negative one. The current administration has withheld funding for Scholastic hunting programs and some other adjacent educational funding. So if anything's essentially touching any kind of hunting or firearms awareness or competition shooting, they've withheld funding to those schools for that. And another way to create animosity and division and to blame property or the people that are comfortable with property for the poor policy and the result of poor policy, violence in society, and mental health issues that aren't taken care of, drug abuse, use, distribution that's on the black market, the markets for those drugs, and the really violent situations that are that are created. So more of the same. Demonize the law-abiding because they're easy to, and that creates the conversation, the division that they're looking for. The ping pong game or the tetherball game that goes on happens over here on the playground while they ignore what's happening in the parking lot behind the bleachers. So it's part of their game, and our hope here is to shed some light on that. Chicago Mike's out there. Roy Munson, good afternoon. Woods and Wesley and M. Gabriel. Pat in the Bunker may or may not still be out there, but he was the first one to give us a thumbs up and a howdy. So if you're out there, we won't know unless you say something about it. There's a couple of people that have links if they want to join in tonight. Otherwise, we'll get into the stuff that we actually watched on YouTube this week, getting into the Second Amendment stuff up front. And I always put the most Second Amendment, the most important, the most useful stuff at the top of the list. And it's pretty much always Brooke Cheney's Suicide Prevention Saturday. So if we want to actually eliminate the debate, if we want to eliminate the constant blame of our property or our comfortableness with that property, the fact that we're not as scared of the property, the guns, what's really going on here is that the people who are being abused, the people that are being duped, are being told that there's this many deaths with firearms, and that's the reason they should be so worried about firearms. Of course, the reality is that 2 out of every 3 of those deaths with a firearm is in fact a suicide. And while a suicide is technically a crime and a suicide is technically violent, it is often suggested that the firearm is responsible for the suicide. We all know that a firearm is a tool, is a factor. The real issue there is the causes, the root causes, the mitigating issues, and the stigma about mental health, the lack of awareness of mental health, the signs and the understanding of what to do when you see the signs, the infrastructures to do something to help people, sometimes eliminate stress or create new avenues of dealing with issues. We also have the uncomfortable topic of suicide itself and dealing with that. So what Brooke does is each Saturday has a short but consistent effort to make these conversations more effective, to bring up these topics and be more effective and more comfortable with them so that we can actually affect change. We can have a more useful conversation with people on the other side so that they understand that they are being told that there's psycho killers with access to firearms, and that is the thing that lights the wick, and it's inevitable that firearms owners are about to snap, and it's just a matter of time before each of them snaps, and we're like firecrackers. As soon as one snaps, the rest of us, they're creating these horrible narratives, and in reality, the numbers that they're using to justify this is 2 out of every 3 of those numbers are suicide. And in reality, those people who are against guns are really against harm and violence and seeing people without options hurt themselves or others. And in reality, those people would be more interested more often in helping those people that are having trouble than they are fighting with us. So having an ability to change that conversation or change that angle is valuable. Brooke does that each week, a little bit, another step in the staircase, another rung in the ladder, another tool in the toolbox to accomplish more effective communication. She's part of the DC project. She's got a grade start shooting school. She's a firearms instructor. She's been doing a bunch of different things. We might talk about them in here this week. I forget what all I have in here. But the Suicide Prevention Saturday project, nothing at the national level is being done for this specifically. There are only 2 organizations that are even adjacent. They both get funded in the tens of thousands of dollars, and neither one of them addresses suicide. They essentially leave that up to Brooke, who does it on her own time, on her own dime. So if you got one thing you can support each week, one thing you can join in and be part of, Saturday afternoons, Suicide Prevention Saturday is my suggestion. This week she had another project she was working on with Mario Mosen, doing a dry fire series that was 5 episodes long. A couple other ladies that are doing things in the realm of awareness and removing ignorance, creating understanding, reaching across the aisle, putting themselves in other people's shoes, and then explaining our shoes to those people once they've established that relationship. Of course, doing that with our elected representatives with the DC project. These ladies are also in Girl and a Gun, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, and other individual initiatives. But together they are Sisters in Arms, a firearm story, which is a television show on public access television in Massachusetts. And they cover both Massachusetts and Rhode Island with Carrie Ann and Renee. And they cover on their show topics that are, Second Amendment related, occasionally people that are new or becoming aware of firearms type of topics. This week, they talk about why hunting is so important. Again, you can watch the people who shout and scream about rights and property, which has been going on for a long, long time, and it certainly makes money. Or you can be supporting and pay attention to and monitor and watch and be part of the conversation with the ladies that are actually accomplishing the most amount of work that's happening in gun realm, period, since the time of guns. Like literally some of the most important work that's being done in guns is happening right now in 2023. And it's been happening for the last 7 years, and it's happening very quietly, very deliberately, very effectively. So you can be aware of that, or, rah, 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 or whatever. We've got, this is the first testimony from Unapologetically Armed over here on YouTube. And I'm going to just go ahead and play it. It's a short, so like 36 seconds long.
Is something that as women we really are worried about. Is that part of what your concern is as well?
Well, absolutely. And I mean, I'm a tiny person, and I carry a gun that holds 11 rounds with a spare magazine with the same number. Do I expect to need every single one of those in a self-defense situation? No. But I treat my ammo needs the same way I do toilet paper. I'd rather have more than enough than to find out I've run out and I need it most.
So she got a laugh. She got her point across to the representative who was asking the question. She did that in a funny, kind of lighthearted manner so that the other people who were listening, more than likely barely paying attention, looking at their phones or whatever, all were able to look up and realize that there was a nice back and forth happening. And that was her first time publicly testifying. And again, one of my favorite posts, not just this week, like period. That's just a great post. We're going to keep going. So she's also unapologetically armed, has also created this journal, teal leather journal, hand bound. There's a raffle, is that what you call it, going on with the DC project. It's probably over by now. I think it ended 3 or 4 days ago. But it was a fundraising project for the DC project. The armed attorneys out of Texas had posted this update about the suppressor challenge, and for the life of me, I can't remember what the update was, so I'm just going to have to leave it at that right now. I am going to flip over because Chicago Mike is out there right now, and I guess I have to pick something to open it in. There we go. So we just got back from the Triple T truck stop. I don't know if anyone's familiar with the Triple T truck stop, but this is the Omar special. I believe Omar was the owner for a long time. Got some hash browns going on, some refried beans, eggs, some stuff going on underneath of there, and 2 cheese enchiladas, along with some extra tortillas going on there. Or, if that's not your style, you've got the cheeseburger. It's typical standard cheeseburger. Pile of bacon underneath all that cheese there. And what do you call these kind of fries? Steak fries, I think. So, I'm not a big fan of those kind of fries personally. But Triple T truck stop in Tucson. I don't know how many people are truck people or how many people like eating food. But if you ever go past the Triple T truck, well, if you ever go past Tucson, it's the only truck stop in Tucson, really. But been here for a long time. I don't know if Chicago Mike's been there. I can't remember if we've talked about it or not. I don't know if he got to see that. He might be driving. But Chicago Mike jumped in. Wesley Foster is out there as well. I think I already said, hey, Roy. If I'm missing anybody, let me know. So again, I can't remember what this video is about, but you can go watch it. It's probably not that long. On Tuesday, the Ripoff did the book report show where they do a book review. I guess some people have not read The Art of War. I recommend it. It's a short book. It's been something like 2,500 years old, and it is still very useful. I've been reading this book a couple of times a year most of my life. Useful. Try not. And if you know what I'm talking about, maybe comment on which is your favorite way to read it or absorb it. So I like to listen to it as a book on tape. There's quite a few versions of it, and I kind of like, can't say I like all of them, but there's quite a few of them I've enjoyed. Some of them I had like music and extra stuff to the audio that others don't bother with. Let's see. Then we have Riding Shotgun with Charlie. Had an interesting conversation this week. I haven't been able to catch all of Charlie's interviews lately. This one was, it's an attorney, and he's had sort of a lot of stuff going on. It says now he's with U.S. Law Shield. I don't know if they even talked about that really, but they talked a lot about this guy. I think it's in Pennsylvania. So I don't know if Barbecues listened to that one or not. This one I have not yet listened to, but I'm planning on it. So Stephen Holbrook is a researcher and a writer, and he's been more and more frequently a guest commentator, expert witness type for Second Amendment related things because of his, expert level knowledge on the matter. So this is the attorney who hangs out with the Daily Bullet show on Fridays, doing, I forget what part of the country he's in. Alex Uli? And he has a conversation here with Stephen Holbrook. So about his new book, America's Rifle, The Case for the AR-15. I have not listened to it, but I'm assuming it's going to be interesting because it's not going to be some dingus who's never heard of the book before, or somebody that's just standing on the side of the tetherball game, rah, rights, and just a boring review. This will be an in-depth, I'm assuming more interesting review, since that's an attorney who's actually paying attention, talking to an researcher who is ultimately knowledgeable. Next, we get Walk Talk America, WTTA. They do a podcast. I don't know how often. I certainly don't get to catch them very often, so this is the first one I've seen. They talked about doing it, but I don't know if it's the first one. So I haven't listened to it yet, but I'm curious. So it's like 2 hours or something, so I haven't had time to listen to it all the way. But if I like to put it in here, because we do only have really Brooke and then a couple of organizations that are paying attention to mental health and firearms, and Walk the Talk America is the largest and the most effective of those groups. Now we get to Brooke's dry fire videos. She did a bunch of them. I think this is just one of them. Well, this is just one of them. I forget which one it is. But as an instructor who's attempting to use the medium of the internet to both inspire and motivate students or just people who are following the channel, I think it's great to see Brooke working in different ways to play with the tech and the concepts of firearms education. I don't know how many people are really paying attention to it. Years ago, last time I was really paying attention, you were either into firearms education, into training, or you were against it. I'd say most of the people on YouTube were against it. They just hated it. They still hate it, I think. And since it's changing constantly, I wonder if they allow that to affect their decision, or if they still just hate all training and would throw something like what Brooke's attempting to do and some of the other people are attempting to do in 2023 in with what they saw or perceived in like 2010 or something, or worse, like 2012 or something. Then we had the mouse party, which is now happening on Saturdays due to circumstances beyond anyone's control. But it gives us a weekly overnight on the weekend, which is pretty cool. So I've always been pro weekly overnights. Now we alternate mouse parties and overnights. Saying that the Android player from YouTube, no mini player, can't surf websites without watching. That's lame. I thought that you could. Well, maybe it's just you can only go in YouTube and look around. I know on my phone I can smash on the right button at the bottom, and that'll open up like a separate window, and I can essentially have split screen. And then on my one phone, there's that same option that comes from the kind of the middle of the screen on the right. But that phone has a curvy screen, and it has some kind of extra layer or extra window like that. But see if you can't mash on one of your buttons and see if it opens up like a split screen. I've done that before. In fact, I could do that on my old phone, so that might be old tech. Maybe they still do it, maybe they don't. I don't know. So even though it's a 9mm video, She Fires is always supporting our projects. She's often helps out with me and Clover, giving us ideas and suggestions and feedback when we do the coaching. So she's talking about buying some kind of SIG that I guess she liked. And at first, I think she says she likes looking at it. Once she had it for a while, she found out she prefers shooting a different kind of gun. So again, people are always going to start somewhere and then start buying guns. Gun ownership isn't a single gun. It's not a single holster. So welcome to that. And it's cool to see. Well, interesting to see. I don't know if it's cool. It's just going to happen. But interesting to see the waves of gun owners. There's what do they say? How does that saying go? Anyway, essentially everything that's old is new again, or everything that's new is old. I don't know how it goes, but essentially everybody who's new is going to have the same set of questions, and the people that are answering those questions turn out to be the people that were new, and the people that are old kind of stop answering those questions, and that process happens, and you don't really realize it until you've just seen it happen so many times, and then pretty soon you're like, oh wait, I'm way over here, and the new people are way over there. So anyway, it's interesting to watch all the new people coming in and how they're helping and dealing with each other, and how the community is aware of and helping them out compared to other waves in the past. We met up with what's the name of the channel? Bucks and can't remember the name of the channel now. And the way that we're running it on Substack, it doesn't tell you the name of the channel. It just shows you the
Hey,
thumbnail.
Dr. Drew, my wife Susan here. We want to show you something.
I don't want to look at it. So is that ever going to load?
You're probably seeing this guy all over your.
Quit it. Bullets for Bucks is the channel. So we recently found the channel. Been checking out some of the videos. Pretty good stuff if you're into hunting. Us is a dude up in Wyoming who's got all kinds of videos about hunting and optics and the different tools of the trade for, you can imagine, the kind of hunting you'd get in Wyoming. So did we already talk about the mouse party? I guess we're talking about the mouse party again. And then you got Roll Call. He's still allowed to do videos, even though he's not doing videos anymore. And I don't know. What is your opinions on 5.56 AKs? You can't just not have an opinion on this. So let's see. Then we had the Ghost and Clover podcast. I'm pretty sure I missed that one. They were talking about Glock or CZ. So guess who won that one? I wonder. Oh, wait. No, I don't know what Ghost and Clover were talking about. Ghost's podcast was about Glock or CZ, but same answer. I wonder who won that. Bunch of Glock haters, and they are also CZ lovers. I wonder who won. This one I did not see. This one I also don't think I seen. Let's see. We've got Caliber Corner. Travis does his show on Monday afternoons now, and he had British American Andy join him, and they chatted about conversations about stuff. We have Chris from 740 keeping the conversation going with a panel live chat each Wednesday evening. And this week he had West Virginia Guns and Goats on. Cool dude. They talked about his guns. He has a bunch of interesting, expensive, and weird and unique guns. He's in West Virginia. They didn't talk too much about that, but you don't get too many people from West Virginia in chats really. And then he had goats, or he has goats. So I'm a big fan of goats. I don't know if anybody's ever worked with goats before, but I got to work with pack goats before. And compared to horses, they're kind of neat. They're like a big dog, and you don't have to pay as much attention as you do with horses. They're like a pack mentality, so they're more easy to deal with than dogs, for sure. And except for, I guess if a wolf came up and scared them away or something, they're pretty, it's pretty easy to deal with. And you don't have to bring no food. That's what I liked about them. You bring horses or something up into the mountains, you got to bring food for them horses. It's possible to let them eat on stuff, but if you're really working them, you need them to have food. So you got to bring some food. And then you got to feed them, and you got to worry about all that. And you got to have, how you're going to feed them and everything. And you got to have some kind of way to corral them. So most of the time you're bringing up some kind of corral for the horses. So you're essentially bringing up a pack horse just to keep horses up there. Goats, they got their packs on that hold the stuff, but they can carry a ton of stuff. And if you need more stuff, you just bring 3 more goats. Doesn't even matter. One goat has a bell on, and then they just follow. You just make sure you got that goat around you somewhere, and they just follow you like dogs. And then when you get to where you're going, you take all the stuff off of them, and they kind of hang out and then in the morning you go, and they all come over, and you put your stuff back on them. They're really fun. I'm only remembering the good parts, I guess, but you never really hear about goats. I thought they were pretty neat. Another one from Travis. He's bragging about his Ruger bolt action 7.62x39. The best channels out there have bolt action 7.62x39s. One thing you want to ask yourself is the channel I'm watching, do they have a bolt action 7.62x39? And if the answer is you know what I'm saying? You've made your decision. I'm just saying you figured out all you need to know. Let's see. The next thing is Kingpin. He's been doing the ABCs of 2A, so he got up to the Y, and of course, you go with what's his face, Dragunov, Yigovigini, I believe is how you pronounce his name. I guess everybody's been booking out of here. Must be too late for him, or I'm being corked by something. But if you got any other questions or posts or anything you want to put in here, let me know. We're getting closer to the end here, so I'm going to take a look at the poll again. We got a bunch of more votes. We got some for Great Week. We got some for Good Week. Still, Okay Week is winning by 36%. Good Week is at 29%. Great Week is at 21%, and Bad Week is at 14%. So, definitely interested in hearing what your opinion is, why you voted, because it's getting to be a real competition and not just a landslide. That makes it more interesting. So I think I can understand why you could pick any of those this week. And if I remember, we'll dig into that a little bit more. I'll mention again, there are a couple of links out there to people over on the Instagram, but it looks like they're not even green anymore. So I'll just close Instagram. They're not coming in. Now we're going to talk about, I guess we already started talking about gun stuff here at some point. So now we're talking about Dragonmans. Let me just let you hear about Dragonmans.
Guys, I'm the Dragon Man. Thanks a lot for coming out. It's another beautiful day in Colorado Springs. You can't beat the weather, really. You know, everybody's cooking down there, south, and this is really a good place. Nice breeze, nice and cool. My girlfriend and I, we stayed in the house. We went. We call it camping because I had all 3 windows open. Okay, so anyway, we're going to go through this building. It's 78,000 square feet. I have 142 vehicles in this one building. I can't even fit another Jeep in here. 92 military vehicles and 50 hot rods. We go all the way back to the American Revolutionary War, the beginning of America, 1776. If you didn't know it, America right now is 247 years old. So we do the American Revolutionary War, the Civil War, World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, and Afghanistan. And coming soon, another few months, Ukraine. Well, we don't have to get on it. They got to get rid of that Putin guy. Yeah. Okay, so anyway, in this one building here, we got over 2,500 weapons, fully automatic weapons. In fact, everything in my museum, I say 98% of everything is fully operational. They're real bullets, real machine guns. Most of the vehicles run, I think, all but 2. It's pretty amazing. 5,000 helmets, 3,000 flags. I've been working on this museum close to 40 years now. Spent a little over $10 million. It doesn't look like much from the outside, but you guys are going to be blown away when you go inside. We got over 1,600 uniform mannequins, 6 machine gun bunkers, and you're going to be very impressed. As we go through the museum, you have to watch the carpets, they overlap, and watch it on trip. If you have to go out for any reason, we have...
So it's a 2-hour tour, and I don't know if you mentioned, I think it's 40,000 square feet. Epic. Nothing lasts forever. It's 2023. You've got a couple of more weeks, month to be able to get to Dragonmans. Maybe there's a season, 10 seasons, 5 seasons. Who knows how many seasons of Dragonmans the way that it is today. He talks about it getting bigger again, and he's getting more involvement with other people. So we'll see, as it develops, we'll see what it turns into. Singularly, an epic time to be, if you're a gun owner, to be able to experience what Dragonmans is. Wish I could say more. get to Colorado if you can do it. All right. So next up is sad news, super sad news. I don't know how many people out here have Ontario Knife or knives from Ontario Knife Company, but the Ontario Knife Company is out of business and has been sold to, I think, a distributor, and they're just planning to keep the knife name, but I forget, 46 or 56 employees are out of business. A U.S. fairly economical, and it wasn't a cheap brand by any means, but they weren't custom knives. They were super well made. They are super well made, super strong knives, but they are production knives, so they kept the prices reasonable. And just a cool company. They did their patch game was really, really, really good embroidered patches, woven patches actually. And stickers were super cool. Their artwork, they had a lot of fun with it. They were just, they had a lot of interactivity. I know they did a lot of small projects with other companies and stuff, making, the knife tool part of a tool, or collaborating on something, and doing part of the machining or something. So they did some really ingenious stuff, but I guess they hadn't made enough money for the parent company to keep them viable, and they weren't viable. So, or whatever the words are. So they're gone. I don't know how big a blow that is to anybody. It's not my favorite knife company by any means, but I definitely like Made in USA. I like the idea that we had a core, solid group of knives made in USA, and now we have one less. So that's kind of bad news. It is bad news for sure. Nothing good about that. We've got some radio shows that we listen to each week. The best one probably is Cape Gunworks, Rapid Fire Radio, which happens every Wednesday, midday. And in addition, Toby hosts a 2-8 Tuesday segment for 45 minutes on Tuesdays on the Grace Curley Show, a radio show in Boston, Massachusetts. So because Grace Curley's been on maternity leave, there's actually been quite a few fill-in shows, and Toby just hosting her show for her and filling in for other co-hosts and stuff. So lots of action going on with the political conversations, and they tend to be gun related, but for straight gun related on Wednesdays, they do their own show. And this was no different with the stuff that's happening in Massachusetts. Again, there's a lot of concern and awareness and people jumping in to get up to date and to be reassured and to get understanding on the issue. So you can see what the results of a consistent show that focuses on what the Second Amendment protects and not just the toys and the gear. What happens is when there's an issue, people know where to go or where to come to get answers. And that's what you saw happen on Wednesday in the last couple of weeks. But here on Wednesday, when there was a bit of a conclusion, a bit of a final, at least for now, like a stop in the movement or the momentum of the bad bill, it was, you see the benefit, the positive consequence of people who keep the community together. There's people that have audiences, and there's people that foster community. Most of the people I value are the people that I do value are the people that are fostering communities. Tons of people can create an audience and keep an audience around, and usually that's done by screwing with them, saying the sky's falling all the time, keeping a constant drip of attention. And unless that's done on the ultimately most positive of reasons and methods, what you end up with is wearing people out, thrashing through audiences at great numbers, and in the results, in the end, the big real consequences is a bunch of people become apathetic, and they think, oh, there's nothing that can be done. Look at all the people that showed up to that, and the result was nothing. Well, when there's no call to action, all the people in the world can show up. If you don't ask them to vote, if you don't ask them to make a phone call, if you don't ask them to buy a T-shirt so that the funds, flow to whoever can do something with the resource, then effectively you are doing nothing. And I can see why people would get apathetic from that. So the opposite is the shows that bring people together for real interest, real context, and a focus on what's important, so that when there's issues, people know where to show up. And Cape Gunworks is a piece of the industry that's doing that. That's super rare. You can get individuals. Gizzard, he's not out here right now, but he's one of those people. Chris from the 740, one of those people. People that can keep community going are few and far between, but people in the industry that do it, super rare. It's one of the reasons I respect the Cape Gunworks project so much. They're unique. And there you go, Gun Owners Radio, a really good organization out of Southern California. But they do their radio show. They stream the broadcast of their radio show. And for whatever reason, they pulled it. So I went to all the trouble of linking to it, and kind of pointless. Nothing, not a big deal. It's just that they're not really paying attention, or they're not. I don't know what they're thinking, but they decided to pull it. They don't do this. This isn't a rare occurrence. They do this quite a bit. So, if you needed to do this because something happened, somebody burped in the middle of something and they thought it was embarrassing and they'd rather have the show removed, I could understand this, but it happens all the time. They pull the show, they'll chop it up into pieces, and then why? Leave the main one up there. I don't know why they don't leave the main one up there also. It's the internet, for crying out loud. Come and Talk It is another radio show. So we had Massachusetts, we have Texas, we have California, and now we have Texas. So Come and Talk It is the Michael Cargill from the Cargill bump stock, Fifth Circuit Court case that's been in the news recently. That's the same Michael Cargill. Central Texas Gunworks is the gun shop that he owns and runs, and it's where they host the Come and Talk It podcast. It recently moved from Sundays to Wednesdays. So you can check it out just before Chris from the 740. I think it's either right at the same time or right in front of. Now, this week it happened on Thursday, and I didn't hear anything like it's going to happen on the regular like that. So I don't know if that was to accommodate a guest or why, but it'd be cool if they switched to Thursday. So we'll find out what happens. But this is just episode 3 of the new format, and check that out. Roy is saying that it always sucks to lose a company like that. I agree. And welcome. Thanks for jumping in. Or I guess I already said hey before. Let's see. So, Gunmetal Guy. I didn't say hey to you. Thank you. Thanks for jumping in. So, now we're going to talk about some of the military interview shows. And man, holy moly. This is the reason I didn't listen to some of these others that I'd like to, because I was too busy listening to some of these things. So, this one was on right now. This one just ended earlier today. And this is Gary Linderer from Long Range Reconnaissance Patrol in Vietnam. So if you've heard of MAC v. SOG, those are the teams that would go up into Laos and Cambodia and work with indigenous forces to fight the communists that were going outside the theater of battle to supply and go around and do things that were unscrupulous. So we went up and did unscrupulous things to them. So that's MAC VSOG. But if you think about that job happening inside of Vietnam, that's where Long Range Reconnaissance Patrols. Pretty gnarly dudes, lots high kill counts, lots of gruesome stuff happening, and absolutely no backup. Absolutely, nothing like what they got today. So just a whole different group of people. If you've never had an opportunity to talk to people from Vietnam, well, one, they'd never talked about this stuff back in the day. They just didn't do it. It was not the thing to do. They weren't going to do it in front of their parents who never talked about this stuff. And they weren't going to talk about it. They would talk about it if they were drunk. They'd talk about it if you were amongst, if you were in a unit and you talked to each other. But you didn't talk about it in mixed company with regular people. You didn't talk about it around civilians or nothing, or families or anything. You never talked about this stuff. And it's just years have gone by, decades have gone by, fewer and fewer people exist, times have changed. Being able to hear some conversations, you just weren't able to, regular people were never going to get these conversations, and now they're being archived. So this one is amazing, really interesting if you're interested in Vietnam and the stuff that happened in that era. For example, they talk about this is an M79 grenade launcher in this guy's hand. They talked about putting a flare inside of that so that they could alert the helicopters that were coming for them without, alerting everybody in the area with a flare. So just that level of ingenuity and thinking outside the box in order to have a directional light for, bringing in a helicopter at a completely dark drop zone. That kind of stuff is just neat. And the way that he casually mentions it in the conversation here this evening gives you an idea of just, the level that the guys were on, just hands-on, different level of awareness. Contrast that with Team House having a conversation with Andy Stump. I didn't listen to this one yet. I'm really looking forward to it. His conversations are usually pretty good, and I don't think he's ever been on the Team House. So this one's going to be conversations that I've heard before, at least stories that I've heard before. This guy, as he's going along, is going to have different stuff to bring up because he's been on so many conversations or so many podcasts talking about the same stuff. His stories are going to evolve. Plus, he's going to have different things in common. This is a Ranger and a Green Beret talking to a SEAL. So, just different levels of common understanding and stuff. So people, SEALs talking to each other are different than when just different types of branches are talking to each other. So it's going to be interesting to listen to this one. So there's 3 Team Houses here. They do their shows on Fridays, just before Gizzard, and then on Tuesdays. So this was today, this was Tuesday, and this was last Friday. This is really one that's interesting. So if you don't like military stuff, this is an ATF agent who was undercover with biker gangs in Ohio for a long, long time, doing all kinds of crazy shit and just being rogue. I mean, it's pretty interesting. Great storyteller, super interesting guy. You're going to really have a lot of fun. I think this one's close to 3 hours. That's an amazing conversation. This is a really cool one too. This must have been another Tuesday one. I missed this one a couple of weeks ago, so I just barely got along to reading this one or listening to this one. But this is a writer and a guy who just talks about how he came up with the ability to write these stories without having been in prior service or anything. And then if you've seen the movie Gray Man, it came out 2 years ago, 3 years ago. They talk about this, the guy that made that book that they write the movie about. Then you've got Mike Drop talking to Border BORTAC, or this is essentially Border Patrol's tactical unit, and lots and lots of interesting conversations here. This is actually part 2, so tons and tons of good stuff in this one. You get Combat Story talking to a guy who's been around since the 80s at the beginning. This is a guy who was around becoming a SEAL at a time when the SEALs were still becoming out of UDT and becoming their own thing. And then at that time, he jumps over to contracting. Or no, wait. Yeah, he's in the SEALs for a while, and then he gets out, and then he's contracting at the beginning of the Global War on Terror. So a guy who's had some old school SEAL experience on teams, but not really in doing anything in combat, and then he goes over and becomes a contractor and has a whole nother kind of career there. Interesting conversations for sure. Great contrast with some of these other conversations for sure. And I feel like I'm probably missing one. No, I think I'm just behind on some of these. So one of the reasons there's 4 Team Houses in here is because I've been doing stuff and I just have missed a bunch of these. So these didn't all come out last week. These are just catching up on back shows. All of them are really good, though. Definitely worth checking out. All right. Nobody saying anything out there? We'll go check on the poll one last time before we get to the last pieces here. What happened to the poll? Did somebody steal the poll? What happened to the poll? There it is. So what do we got going on? We do have same amount of results as before because nobody has voted. So we'll end it it looks like OK Week has won, and nobody has came in live here and said why they picked what they picked. So we'll just have to leave that one for the people that are listening. You'll have to come up with your own reasons why they chose what they chose. Or if you're in the future, feel free to leave a comment with why you think the people that were here live were scared to tell us why they chose what they chose. At the end of the show each week, we talk about some of the stuff that we do throughout the week. So in addition to this weekly wrap-up, we do a chat with CloverTac on Tuesday morning, afternoon, depending on where you are in the country, kind of midday, doing coaching, trying to give people some inspiration, some motivation, and some info on creating content, especially if you're interested in creating content that has to do with what our Second Amendment protects. If you like gun stuff, that's awesome. But if you're interested in helping the DC Project ladies or creating a new organization, I guess, if that's your thing, or helping an organization that's already out there to do something that they need help with or they haven't done before, assuming that they're interested in helping, having your help, then that's what we're all about. We need people who are doing stuff and who are able to do stuff. And we'll help with that if we can on Tuesdays. Last week we were talking about how to make money. What do we got next week? It'll be, or the next show on Tuesday will be all about traveling to the different Second Amendment events. We kind of started this series talking about SHOT Show, so we'll kind of go back to that and talk about SHOT Show. Last week we had Ask Gun questions, and I think Clover blew us off, and me and Tony had the show. This week, I think it might be me and Tony, but I think I might be getting blown off on 2 counts. Depends on if Tony got out to Rick Ector's or not. But we're not going to do an Ask Gun questions this week. We'll do Guess Gun Prices, where we'll go back in time into the 1980s and let people guess how much guns cost back in the 1980s. It might scare you. It might make you mad. So it kind of depends on how you deal with it. This is a show where we go around and talk about what happened on YouTube predominantly. Well, we do another show where we do the same kind of thing, except we talk about the Instagrams. So we did that show on Wednesday, and we'll do that again next Wednesday. And that's it. We have a Substack, and on that Substack, you can see a bunch of other posts. That's what this is that we've been looking at tonight. And if you don't like Substack for whatever reason, you don't like reading or scrolling through like this, we also do a newsletter most every week that you can get in your email box. But I tell you what, if you don't like reading emails, don't sign up for it because that actually costs us money. So if that's your thing, we do it. But it costs us money, so don't just waste everybody's time if you're not going to read the emails. And I don't do them every week because they take a lot of time, actually. So looking for lots of feedback on the newsletters. It actually costs us money, too. So I mentioned the Patreons who help us do what we do. One of those things is $13 or something to the newsletter each month. And I don't know if it's worth it or not. Every once in a while, it's useful to have a newsletter, but people tell me it's important to have a newsletter. But like I say, preparing this for each week for the newsletter takes a lot of time. We have the Instagram link up there. You can check out our Instagrams, and please check out our Patreon. It's essentially our blog. Most of everything you see that we do out there gets also put on our blog, on our Patreon blog. But it's a place for our subscribers, the people that help us do what we're doing, a place for them to get together, chat, and keep up to date on whatever interesting things we might be got going on. That being said, everybody's been kind of quiet tonight, so I don't know if we went too late. We did start about a half an hour late because of some things I got going on. But stay tuned for some new stuff happening on all of our channels because somebody got themselves an iPhone finally. And that means I can unlock a couple of magic apps that only work on iPhones because of racism. Or wait, is that phoneism? So phoneism is the reason I had to get myself an iPhone because I had some apps that only work on one phone. So finally got one, and it's charging as we speak. In fact, I'm going to sneak a peek and see if it'll tell me it's warm. Oh, snap. Is it already charged? It actually charges pretty quick. I'll be impressed if it charges. Is there a way to get, can you push on it? How do you know? Can't figure out how to get the thing to tell me, you know, how much it's charged or whatever, but it looks like it's pretty much charged just from however long we've been chatting here. An hour. Sweet. So tomorrow, stay tuned for some new things. If you're interested in new things, if you're not, take a nap. Yeah, thanks for joining us. We'll throw a commercial up here for our store, and then we'll wrap it on up.
GearWebsites.com is your source for firearms-based playing cards and books. We also have mugs, shirts, and posters with designs that we've made live. Of course, we have patches. Every Friday is Free Patch Friday. We appreciate your support. Thank you for shopping at GearWebsites.com.
Shit. Ninja? Ninja! Ninja!
It's 11:59 at Radio Free America, and this is Uncle Sam with music and the truth until dawn.
Everybody gets a biscuit. Everybody gets a biscuit. It's a biscuit fiesta. It's a biscuit fiesta. Have a good weekend, everybody.